a little bit different, but it is day 4 of the counting.
It is.
Of the Omer. And every morning we meet you at 9:30 Central Time. I know that's not convenient for everybody, so we do, I'm hoping that you can find these on the CRC website. And because we are counting the Omer this year with what we felt was needed, and that was a little more love. So we're counting the Omer with Shir HaShirim, the song of all the songs. Shir HaShirim, Shir Shalom. So that's what we're doing, and we're just making it through chapter 1 of Shir HaShirim, and it's already, every word in this book, even though it's a short book, every word is an invitation to deepen. And I think, as much as we read it as an allegory in the traditional sense, we're reading it to literally be about love and about physical and spiritual, soulful love.
The intersection of the physical and the spiritual.
It is the intersection. It really is Shir HaShirim. That's why it's the song of all the songs. Because it's truth. It's really truth. And we don't have to hide that truth by saying it's between God and Israel. It's between people. And if we don't get this love thing right between people, we're not going to find ourselves in relationship with God. So, let's count the Omer. Day 4 of 49 that will bring us to the 50th day of Shavuot, when we receive the Torah, our guidebook for living. It's always the end. Freedom only comes when there are rules and laws that restrain us. And yesterday we read this beautiful notion that she is beautiful. She becomes dark because of the light. Her darkness, her beauty, or her shachoriness, right? Her shachoriness comes from the sun, being kissed by the sun. And so the darkness, the beauty of the darkness comes from the light. Ready for day 4? Day 4. You do the blessing? Or we do the blessing after? Amen. Drinking a little Turkish coffee this morning.
Everything created, black tea. Everything created according to your word.
Amen.
Day 4. וערבנה אדוני אלוהינו את דברי תורתך בפינו ובפי עמך בית ישראל, ונהיה אנחנו וצאצאינו וצאצאי עמך בית ישראל. כולנו יודעי שמך ולומדי תורתך תשמע. ברוך אתה אדוני המלמד תורה לעמו ישראל. Oh God, make the words of your teachings pleasant on our lips and the lips of all of those who come into our circle, so that we can spend the time in learning for what? For the pleasure of it. Blessed are you who teaches to your people in this fashion. Amen.
Amen.
Pardon me. Oh my
God. La Briut.
Here we are in the heartland, the omphalos, the belly button of America, from our undisclosed location. Here are the early days of television. And there's in the air, there's allergens.
Oh, yeah.
Here we go. All right, so, oh my goodness. Again, I'd like to revisit the idea that we encounter from our ancestors, that the three texts that are linked to Shlomo, did you hear that?
Yeah.
That are linked to Solomon, the three texts being this one, the Song of Songs, Proverbs, and Ecclesiastes, Kohelet, that they represent different parts of his life. This is a work of a younger person, really a younger person, in the arc of youth. The Song of Songs pertains. Proverbs, in that mid-range, Proverbs, you might need guidance in those years. You look for your wisdom. And in the last arc of your life, your optimism is a little tarnished. You realized vanity, it's all vain. And you come to understand things a little differently. That's how Maimonides read it. Sometimes Rashi read it that way. Also, they switch it around too. And some of the commentators, they put the Song of Songs at the last arc of your life, which I think is really interesting. Don't say anything about that. Yeah.
Okay.
So to lead a better life, I need my love to be here. So let's see. Let's get to the text, huh? Oh, counting. Let's get to the counting.
Get to the counting first. Day 4.
This reminds me of the Soupy Sales show. Day 4, counting the Omer. Netzach, Shibechesed. Netzach, this sense of, what's a Netzach? A sense of victory. We're in the second triad. So in a sense, we get a second pass at synthesis. Each triad represents a thesis, an antithesis, and a synthesis. A left and a right pole, and a center balancing pole. Netzach, a sense of victory on the second pass. A sense of ascendance. This one makes pictures into words. We were all haunted, lifted by your gates, lifted up by your gates, blessing the children within. The word spreading forth on the earth, the word running. Second pass on ascendance. The future becomes present. No need of a savaging past. Scattering like crumbs, like ashes, like justice, justice, justice. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kishem b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu al sfirat ha'omer. Hayom arba'a yamim la'omer. Today is day 4 of the Omer, your spiritual alignment. Here's the key as I read it. Chesed, love, Gevurah, restraint, Tiferet, beauty.
So
second triad, third triad. Netzach, you think you know. Hod, you don't.
Right.
Yesod, foundation, third triad. Then Malchut, the spigot.
Nice.
Okay, my dear.
So today is Chesed. We're still in Chesed, but the day is, remind me.
4.
I know, but the day, yesterday was Tiferet. Today is.
Oh, Netzach.
Netzach, of course. Thank you. Netzach. That makes sense. So I want to go back to yesterday just for a moment.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. We should talk about some things. Yeah.
Yeah. So we did kind of get deep in our understanding of the word na'ava, right? But also I want before we go on to verses 7 and 8, the next poem, I'd like to talk a little bit about the last part of this one. I'm still it's ambiguous to me. What does this mean? My brothers were angry with me. They made me guard the vineyards. Well, I have not even guarded my own.
Yeah.
Marcia Falk says the vineyards are herself.
Yeah.
She's not guarded herself. Now, in one sense, that's good because she's liberated. She's free. She's she's allowed to break the rules of sexuality here and pursue her lover.
She gives herself over.
She gives herself over to pleasure, to this love.
But don't you think the vineyards is a more fecund kind of image than self?
Well, I think that's the ambiguity here. I don't
Mhm.
think we really know. Is the vineyard,
I
they
think
made
it's-
me guard the vineyards. Is it a punishment? That they had to guard the family, she had to guard the family vineyards?
Well,
Which is,
how she acts is known. She doesn't act in private, it seems.
yeah, right. That's a good point.
It's known what she is, what she's
So,
doing.
so there is also this element of she's used to people watching her and being disapproving.
Mm-hmm.
She's used to that.
I
Even her
read
brothers,
her vineyards
right?
as her sex, her fecund physicality.
Yeah. Well, I neglected my own.
I gave it away.
Karmi Shali.
In their
Right.
in their view, she's clear about it.
Lo.
All the books are holy,
Natarti.
says Rabbi Akiva.
Mm-hmm.
This one, the holy of holies.
So I still think I think we have to live with a little ambiguity there. And maybe as we get to know her better through the poem, we'll be able to understand and maybe be able to hold that the vineyards are everything, are all of the above. The vineyards are the vineyards of her family that she had to hold and care for and tend. But the vineyard is also herself. I mean, aren't we that complex that we have to hold our family constellation and our responsibilities there, and also our own wants and desires? And sometimes they do conflict.
I'm with you there, kid.
Are you?
Yeah.
Okay, so you want to say
Let's
something
say
about that word?
about Nava.
Nava, right.
In verse
Nava.
5, Shechora Niyam, dark,
Yeah.
black.
Right.
The Nava, which is variously translated, famously.
Comely.
Mm-hmm.
But
pretty beautiful.
We could do better.
But I was confused by it at first because when we talked about it yesterday, at first I thought it was a pay nun verb, like neve. But then I looked at it again while we were still broadcasting.
Right. In the etymology etymological dictionary.
And then I went to
BDB.
Language. I went to Gesenius. Those of you who know will know. And Gesenius talks about it as the Nifal form of a Lamed Hey verb. So that the nun is not part of the root. The nun is part of the structure of the verb, of the word.
And then
So then the root becomes an aleph root, aleph vav hey root, midweek aleph vav hey, and which is a really interesting root. If you look that root up, it has more to do with desire, that kind of physical desire. So and not the pilel, they call it, of the nun aleph hey, or the nun aleph vav root, which is usually read as a BDB. Reads it that way too. He reads it both ways. So na'a is the nun, pay nun verb, and it's comely, befitting, and the nifal form, though, of the aleph vav hey verb, a lamed week verb, desired, desirable, beautiful, but having to do more with desire. And take a look at Jeremiah 6:2 when the root is used as figuratively of Jerusalem. And they seem to be connected, these two roots seem to be connected. The BDB puts them together, connected the nun vav hey verb and the aleph vav hey verb. And it's connected with them. And then we have this very famous use of it in the Song of the Sea in Exodus 15:2, Anvehu, I will beautify him, Anvehu. So in the Arabic, by the way, nawa, according to the Arabic, it's a root of aiming at, like in a journey, your destination. That nun, the pay nun verb. So the place of alighting in a place where you're moving toward becomes a nun ve, a nun vet, a nun vav, excuse me, a nun vav hey verb, a goal of a shepherd, a meadow, a pasture. And we may get neve from that, Isaiah 27:10, for example. So it's a very interesting root. So let's say it has both those sensibilities attached to it, as they seem to be conflated in the BDB and in Gesenius too. One that has to do with the sense of desire, and the one that has to do with the beauty, and that they converge somehow. She's desirable, and she desires, and she's beautiful. So it's an interesting, great verb to use there. Just great.
It's funny that they don't even,
Great
none of the
adjective.
commentators really really go into that word.
I know, it's funny.
It's funny.
Yeah, it's rich. There's some rich. Track it a little bit. It's extremely rich.
Sam asks a question about
Say what?
Sam is asking a question about the Aramaic translating the last part in that last part, and it's interesting that you bring that up, because in a lot of the people trying to date this text, it is usually seen as something a little later in this, like second, third century of the Common Era, because there are some Aramaic influences. Did you read that?
Yeah, and
So rather than saying it's before the Common Era,
and the Aramaic Targum, we
later.
call it, the Targum,
Mhm.
are really, truly interpretations of this in really interesting ways.
Yeah.
And also the Greek version is really interesting. For example, I'll just give you one famous example here. Dodecha, in verse 4 that we talked about, we read that your love,
Mm-hmm.
your moves are better than booze. Your love,
Mm-hmm.
better, sweeter, more fragrant than wine, or something like that. Dodecha, the Greek translation, it reads it daich, which is your breasts.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, you have some really interesting versions here from the Targum and from the Greek.
Mm-hmm. And it's there's no way to really know. That's why these multiple translations are just so much fun to look at and so interesting, because the different poets, the different interpreters, the different translators, really you can tell what they're thinking and what their bias is by what they choose, because you can choose a lot of different things here.
You betcha, sister.
And I wonder if the original poet or poets really meant for them to be ambiguous.
Well, that we don't know.
We don't know.
What verse are we doing now?
So
Let's go on.
we can go on. We can go on to the third poem, which begins with verse 7.
Oh, I love this one.
Okay, so let's go to verse 7.
תגידה לי, שכחורת תגידה לי,
Gita, like from
שאהבה
Haggadah.
נפשי.
Tell me the story. Gita.
איכה.
Haggadah, right? From, how, but the longing kind of how that we have is the first word of Lamentations.
That seems like a new voice, or a new poem, or a new voice.
Right.
But because you have a
Maybe.
new voice doesn't mean you have a new poem, and I would take some. Just want to mention that.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah, but both poets here, the Blachs and Marcia Falk, start the third poem with verse 7.
Right.
So go ahead. You want to read it?
Tell me.
Maybe just read it. What do you think?
In Hebrew?
Yeah.
Hagida li she'ahava nafshi.
Now translate.
My soul, tell me who my soul loves. My
Right.
soul loves.
Tell me my only love.
Tell me she. She is
She.
significant too here too. It's not a share. It's she,
Echa.
which is a later form of Hebrew than we're expecting here. Hagida li she ahava nafshi. My soul, tell me, you who my soul loves. Echa, how or where? Tire, where are you feeding? You know, your flocks. You know, Echa tarbitz. Tzohoraim, where are you resting?
In the afternoon, because it's so hot, right? That's true. You have to rest your sheep in the afternoon, your flock in the afternoon, because the sun is at it's so hot.
Here we got she again. Shalama.
As a poet, when it says Hagida and then Echa, that's kind of so poetic that they would repeat Echa like that, right?
Yeah, and you know what occurs to me here? It just occurred to me here is that the way this is laid out on a page will be really important in the Hebrew. It needs to be laid out on a page so that becomes clear. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah,
like
see
that.
How they do it here. Yeah.
Not here. It doesn't.
No. See, in both of the poets' interpretations here, we have it laid out like that, so you really see it.
Echa tarbitz v'tzorai shalama. That why? Otya. This is interesting. Why should I be like someone who
has to look for you? Tell me where you are.
Or veiled.
Yeah. So the veiled thing is confusing, I think, because this woman does not hide herself. Right. She's not hiding behind a veil, right?
Yeah. Let's finish the verse. Al edrei chaverecha, by or near the flocks of your companions.
Yeah, I mean, why should I have to look through everything if I know what it is I want? If we know we long for each other, that word desire, right?
Plus, we know that from like other places in the Chumash that you cover up like a harlot. Like in Genesis, there's a verse where the harlot is covered up. Or also a leper in Leviticus. A leper is covered up. Or the Midrash says a mourner is covered up. And it's kind of a symbolic gift in Genesis 38:17 that you give to a harlot. And I don't know if we have that sense here, really.
Well, even Marcia Fox says, that there's a notion of being wrapped and covered, one who is veiled, arguing that the veil is that of the temple prostitutes. She kind of takes that from the RSV. And she says, maybe, but it's based on the emendation of the word to ketoia, following the Syriac.
Okay.
I don't know. I don't like the idea of covered or veiled because I don't think it speaks about her.
Or, in the more romantic poetry, the more medieval poetry, it's to awaken more love in the lover.
The veil does, because,
to awaken more love in the beloved.
Well, the veil, you can't see the wind if there's no garment, right? It's not like the hijab. It doesn't cover. A veil is more translucent, right? I don't know.
That I don't know.
Well, that's where that idea comes from, that it's more suggestive.
Well, it peaks and hides and peaks and hides. It has a little sense of the traditional distinction that we make between the hidden and the revealed. Yeah. And in love making, what's that about? It's to awaken more love. To awaken more love. Let's do the next verse, because the next verse goes with this verse.
Okay. And this is the poem, right?
Im lo tedilach, if you don't know, hayafa, the most beautiful banashim of women. Se'ilach, go, the ikvei hatzon, in the ways, the footsteps of the flock. Uri et gediotaich,
excuse
Bless
me.
you.
Thank you.
And shepherd and feed the little kid, the little goats. Al mishkenot haroim, in the dwelling places of the shepherds, the dwellings of the shepherds. Love that. The
So
mishkenot haroim.
let me read the whole,
Yeah, go ahead.
the block translation, I think here. Tell me, my only love, where do you pasture your sheep? Where will you let them rest in the heat of noon? Why should I lose my way among the flocks of your companions? Loveliest of women, if you lose your way, follow in the tracks of the sheep. Graze your goats in the shade of the shepherd's tents.
Lovely.
So there's a
What were 25
suggestion
minutes?
by both of these poets that we have two voices here, right? We have the two voices. The first is the woman saying, come on, I'm looking for you. Don't make it hard for me. I'm here. I'm giving myself to you. Here's my vineyard, shepherd. And it's also interesting as we have the farmers and the shepherds here. We have this back and forth, right? The
Yeah.
vineyard keeper and the shepherd,
Right.
right? So we have that ancient
Distinction between
right,
the
right,
agriculturist
Esau, right,
and
right,
animal husbandry.
right. Cain and Abel, right? Cain and Abel, Esau and Jacob. We've got that dynamic here between this woman and her lover. And then he answers her. We finally get his voice. Oh, loveliest of women. If you lose your way, follow in the tracks of the sheep. Graze your goats in the shade of the shepherd's tents. The way that Marcia Fox says it, oh, if you don't know, oh lovely woman, follow the tracks that the sheep have made. Feed your own little goats and lambs in the fields where the shepherds lie. Pretty
I'll tell you a
suggestive.
story really quick.
Okay.
I got lost
Mm-hmm.
in the roads of the town I went to play with my music teacher.
Yeah.
I ended up on a path.
Right.
Ran out of path. I couldn't go any further in a car, and there was a shepherd there.
Right.
I got out of my car, and he looked at me. I looked at him. He could see I was lost because there was no more road.
Right.
He had goats. He was a shepherd.
Did he put you on your way?
He did. He showed me the path. He showed me the path
Beautiful.
that the animals walked. And he pointed, he said, follow the path to get out. The animals walked. And then he asked me to play for him back. So I unpacked my oud and I played a little bit.
Oh my God. Wow. That's great. That's great. That's
Let's
part of the journey.
Prayer for healing before we finish.
All right. So lots of healing on this fourth day of the Omer as we read our way through Shir HaShirim, trying to bring a little love back into the world. A world so broken by hate, by othering. So let's a healing prayer for the people, of course, of Eastern Europe, of the Ukraine, Syria and Yemen, and all the places that are torn by war. Healing for our friend George Newman. Healing for all the people we know. Could use a little
the healing of the spirit. The healing of the body for those we know, for those we don't know. On my right, the angel Michael. On my left, the angel Gabriel. In front of me, the angel Uriel. Behind me, Raphael. Above my head, above my head, above my head, above my head. Shekhinah. Baruch atah Adonai Rofei HaCholim. Blessed are you, great healer. Amen.
Amen. Have a wonderful fourth day of the Omer, the Day of Mothers. It's Wednesday. We are in April 2022.
Here on the Omphalos, the
Right.
belly button, the heart line of America at an undisclosed location,
April 20th,
broadcasting live.
2022. The fourth
Thank
day
you
of
for
the
coming.
Omer. And we'll be back tomorrow morning. Hope everyone has a really good day. A
Shir
day where
HaShirim.
love and the
Inshallah.
attribute of chesed, mercy, comes together with netzach and brings the world a little closer
Amen.
to peace.